Yugoslav President Slobodan Milošević. Milošević reigned over what was left of Yugoslavia as it fell apart in the 1990s, surviving crippling UN sanctions, wars in Slovenia, Croatia, and Bosnia, violent Albanian separatism in Kosovo, NATO airstrikes against his country, an ICTY war crimes indictment, and 40 years of marriage with a control freak wife. Milošević was definitely a force to be reckoned with. Brutal towards his opponents at home and abroad, this banker, who at one time worked in New York City as a representative of the Yugoslav bank Belbanka, where he even met American banker David Rockefeller, seemed to not really care about the economic trends that were spreading in the region. Strobe Talbot, Deputy Secretary of State under US President Bill Clinton and the lead US negotiator during the Kosovo War, said that as nations throughout the region sought to reform their economies, mitigate ethnic tensions, and broaden civil society, Belgrade seemed to delight in continually moving in the opposite direction. It was Yugoslavia's resistance to the broader trends of political and economic reform, not the plight of the Kosovar Albanians, that best explains NATO's war.
As long as Milošević remains in control, the international community will have little influence over what happens in Belgrade.
Since Milošević didn't want to give up or share his control over the economy with anyone else, he needed to go. And he needed to go fast. Just like this guy, and 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 many others. But it was 2000, elections in Yugoslavia were just around the corner, and it was Milosevic's turn to go. This is me, protesting against Milošević in my hometown of Subotica, Yugoslavia in 2000. I was a kid, and all I wanted was for my country to be more open, more accepted in the world community. And I wasn't alone. Since the early 1990s, there were many mass demonstrations against Milošević, and they were led by opposition leaders such as Vuk Drašković and Zoran Đinđić. Under Milošević, crime and corruption was around every corner, and many of his policies were extremely damaging for the people. Millions in Yugoslavia thought that if we're friendly towards the West, we'd quickly live just like they do. But to overthrow someone like Milošević, you needed a serious team to get the job done.
Hello, I'm Marovic, Ivan Marovic. In 2000, my friends and I brought down Slobodan Milošević.
You need normal people if you want to make change.
So in order to do that, you need to make politics sexy, make it cool, make it hip.
Revolution as a fashion line.
Make repression work for you, make craziness the norm.
10,000 people in the street is news. 10 people in the street is obviously not news. But 10 people in the street doing something crazy, now that's news.
This guy made a revolution happen? You've got to be kidding me. There had to have been more to it. And there was. During the Cold War, the US government loved to interfere in the domestic affairs of other countries. Among others, this was the task of the National Endowment for Democracy, or NED, which was basically a CIA spin-off. Before the elections in September of 2000 in Yugoslavia, the US government made it clear again and again that a victory by Milošević could only have come about through fraud. In other words, irrespective of how anyone voted, Washington would only accept one result as the democratic will of the people. In 1998, Paul McCarthy testified before the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe. McCarthy, a program officer at the NED, boasted that among the many recipients of NED money were the newspapers Naša Borba, Vreme, and Danas, an independent TV station in eastern Serbia, TV Negotin, the prominent news agency Beta, and the important Belgrade station Radio B92.
National Endowment je jedna od prvih organizacija koja je pomogla, oni i danas pomažu u različitim oblicima. Tada je to bila elementarna pomoć, dakle su bili osnovni elementi za naš rad i uređaji.
Naturally, such media were always described in NED literature as independent.
National Endowment i niz drugih fondacija, daleko najveći pomoć je stigla od Soros fondacije, koja je svo vreme bila uz nezavisne medije u Srbiji i nevladine organizacije. Ono što je za tu fondaciju bilo važno je upravo što je imala sedište u Beogradu. Dakle, njen ofis veliki je bio u Beogradu i oni su mogli da veoma lako ustanove šta se događa, koga treba pomoći, gde je najefikasnija pomoć, tako dalje.
One of the organizations that were supported by the NED and many other Western interest groups was the Serbian youth organization Otpor, meaning resistance in Serbian. Ivan Marović, the tropical island-loving revolutionary, was one of the founders of Otpor, together with Srđe Popović, Slobodan Homen, Nenad Konstantinović, Slobodan Đinović, Ivan Andrić, and Dejan Ranđić. Of the almost $3 million spent by the NED in Serbia since September of 1998, according to Paul McCarthy, Otpor was the largest recipient. The U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, said that $25 million was appropriated to Yugoslavia in 2000. The International Republican Institute, another non-governmental Washington group, according to official Daniel Kalingert, met with Otpor leaders 7 to 10 times in Hungary and Montenegro, beginning in October 1998. Some of the $1.8 million the Institute spent in Serbia was provided directly to Otpor. By the fall of 2000, Otpor was no ramshackle students group. It was a well-oiled movement backed by several $1 million from the United States.
Pa to su tuđe pare, Šojiću.
Pa velike pare su uvijek tuđe, Pantić.
But the Americans gave more than just money. Kalingert's organization arranged for a seminar at the luxurious Budapest Hilton from March to April 2000, where a retired U.S. Army Colonel, Robert Helvey, instructed more than 20 Otpor leaders in the techniques of resistance.
Basically, it's techniques in provocation. Basically, it's a matter of doing things that will provoke the existing government to use force to stop whatever it is you're doing.
However, Otpor was just a muscle. There needed to be an actual opposition. For that purpose, the National Democratic Institute, or NDI, which works under the NED umbrella, opened an office in Belgrade in 1997. And by 1999, the NDI had already trained over 900 party leaders and activists. Western officials met with leaders of Serbian opposition parties, urging them to unite behind one presidential candidate. The Washington Post reported that 20 opposition leaders accepted an invitation from the NDI in October of 1999 to a seminar at the Marriott Hotel in Budapest. The U.S. polling firm Pension and Berlin Associates commissioned an opinion poll on the local politicians in Yugoslavia. According to the poll, Slobodan Milošević had a 70% unfavorable rating among Serbian voters. However, the problem was that the big names in the opposition like Zoran Đinđić and Vuk Drašković had negative poll ratings as well, almost as high as Milosevic's. So, a lesser-known candidate who had never cooperated with Milošević, unlike many other opposition leaders, became Milosevic's challenger, Vojislav Koštunica, in front of the Democratic Opposition of Serbia, or DOS, which united most of the bigger opposition parties. On September 24, 2000, elections were held in Yugoslavia and Vojislav Koštunica won more votes than Slobodan Milošević. However, the Federal Electoral Committee declared that Koštunica didn't have more than 50% of the votes needed for an outright victory, and that a second round between Koštunica and Milošević was to be held on October 8th. The Democratic opposition accused Milošević of stealing the elections, and they were backed up by much of the West.
Opposition politicians have produced evidence of electoral fraud in Kosovo to support claims that their candidate, Vojislav Koštunica, won an outright victory in last Sunday's presidential election.
All available information points to a clear lead by the democratic opposition of Serbia's Koštunica.
Today, Milošević is a beaten, broken-back president. We know he was preparing to rig the results. My message to him today, get out of the way and let Serbia get out of the prison into which you have turned it.
The Serbian state-run television saw it differently.
Podaci stajali su na sajtu Demokratske stranke. Tog dana Čedomir Jovanović na konferenciji za štampu DOS-a saopštio je ove podatke.
U ovom trenutku odnos sa dobijenim glasovima je sljedeći. Vojislav Koštunica 2.783.870 glasova.
Neznatno kasnije na osnovu 98,72% prebrojanih glasačkih listića, Čedomir Jovanović je saopštio ove rezultate.
Gospodin Koštunica bi po našim procenama mogao da računa na 2.649.000 glasova.
Za samo sat vremena izborni štab DOS-a izgubio je 134.852 glasa svog kandidata. Ovakva računica je dosad nezabeležena. Ona izlazi iz okvira koje poznaje matematika. Prosto rečeno, apsolutni iznos, odnosno broj glasova koji je jedan kandidat dobio, ne može se smanjivati povećanjem procenta prebrojanih glasova.
The democratic opposition refused to participate in the second round and called for a general strike.
Tens of thousands have answered the call of the democratic opposition of Serbia for a 5-day campaign of civil disobedience. The mass protests have already begun in Belgrade and other cities. Strikes and boycotts are also planned in a concerted effort to force Milošević to accept the opposition's general election victory.
On October 5th, 2000, the final mass demonstration in Belgrade included an assault on the Federal Parliament and Radio Television Serbia, led by a group of specially trained squads of former soldiers. They were followed by a mob of DOS supporters who rampaged through the building, smashing furniture and computers and setting the parliament ablaze. Budding gardening enthusiasts and plant collectors also seized the opportunity to get in on the action. After Radio Television Serbia in Belgrade was seized, it too was torched. Milošević was history. Democracy and freedom had come to Yugoslavia.